everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel we're going to be counting down the top 5 baseball films of all time. So baseball is America's pastime, one of the most popular sports of all time, one of the oldest sports ever as well. And baseball, I think, is the sport that lends itself most to film. Most baseball movies are actually probably better than most people's experience with their baseball teams. I happen to be a Met fan. The last time the Mets won the World Series was in 1986. I wasn't born until 1992. I was a huge Met fan growing up. Baseball at the time was actually probably my favorite sport. The Mets were pretty good actually while I was growing up. They actually made the World Series in 2000. They versed the Yankees, and the Mets got their ass kicked. And that was very tough for third grade John to go back to school with all those Yankee fans and have to face them. But luckily for me, I was such a movie fan. I got to see plenty of great baseball films, plenty of great rags to riches stories, you know, the underdog winning, we got to win the pennant, you know, the classic movie tropes that were all plugged into most great baseball films. But there's also some that put their own spin on it, and those actually usually are the best baseball movies. So today here on the channel, we're going to count down the top 5 baseball films. And just remember, guys, this is just my opinion. You guys might have a different opinion. There are so many different baseball films out there that have just been going on forever. They still make baseball movies to this day. Not as much as they used to. I feel like the 1980s and the early 1990s is really when baseball films were at their peak, but we still get a few every now and then here and there, like Moneyball that came out, I believe, in 2010, which is probably the most recent classic baseball film, that or 42. But, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, that's really when they were hitting their peak, and we were getting one like almost every year, sometimes even 2 a year. So we'll be talking about that right now, and let's dive right into it. At number 5, I have The Natural from 1984, directed by Barry Levinson, starring Robert Redford, Wilford Brimley, Robert Duvall, Kim Basinger, and this one tells the tale about a baseball player who really is a prodigy. He's supposed to go try out for the Cubs to be a pitcher for them. You know, he was growing up, he always thought that he was going to be a big shot baseball player. He even made a baseball bat from a tree that was struck by lightning in his yard and it said Wonder Boy on it. And, you know, that was really him and his father's dream. And unfortunately, he ends up getting shot before he could even try out. So it really was a story of never was. He never got to even have his shot. But 16 years later, you know, he's grinding away, and he finally makes it to the big leagues. But of course, they doubt him because of his age now. He's a much older man, and plus he was a pitcher at the time, but because he got shot, he had to switch to hitting, and, you know, turns out he's a really natural hitter as well, hence the name The Natural. So it all comes to him, and then it really turns into a classic baseball tale from there, where, you know, Wilford Brimley and everyone's doubting that he can do it. Of course he does it. He turns the Knights around, and eventually, you know, they're going for the pennant. But of course, we got to have some more roadblocks as we get there. Like, it seems like it's going to be an easy tale, an easy win, but of course it's not. And then we get to the very end of this movie with some of the most iconic filmmaking in film history. I mean, that last shot of this movie is beautiful. It looks great on 4K, and then of course the Randy Newman score. Many of you guys might know Randy Newman from the Toy Story films. He did that trilogy. Actually, I guess he did all 4 of them, I believe. And, you know, his score in this is probably his best score. It really helps to move this movie along. I don't think this movie works as well or would make my top 5 if it wasn't for that Randy Newman score. So I definitely have to put The Natural at number 5. And then at number 4, this might seem low for some people, but I'm going to have 1989's Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner really was like the baseball king back in the 80s. This is 1 year after he did Bull Durham, which almost made my list because I really do love Bull Durham. But Field of Dreams is definitely a standout baseball film. I mean, hey, if you build it, he will come. You know, people always mistake that for, if you build it, they will come. But no, it's really a father-son tale, this movie. You know, Kevin Costner's character grew up basically not liking his father, resenting his father, not understanding his father. Turns out the two of them just didn't understand each other. You know, one day he hears this message to build a baseball field in his cornfield. And what do we get from there? Well, we get a classic film of, you know, people doubting why is he doing this. But, you know, it's about following your dreams. You know, you get one shot at life. That's why Amy Madigan is so great as his wife in this movie. I love her character in this movie. I also just love their relationship of a very supportive wife. Even when her husband seems like he's going Looney Tunes, she's still there. She's got, you know, patting him on the back, like, you know, we'll do this. We'll waste all of our money. Her brother's doubting them. Her brother's a dick in this movie, but he's doubting like anything that they're doing because it just doesn't make sense. James Earl Jones, who is a late 80s, early 90s baseball movie staple. He pops up in this movie as Terrence Mann, and he is so good in this film. You really care about his relationship to Kevin Costner. I mean, this movie is just so heartwarming, and then obviously we get some classic lines in here. The first time we see Shoeless Joe Jackson, played by the great Ray Liotta, he's like, "Is this heaven?" He's like, "No, it's Iowa." That's a great line. And then, of course, the very end of this movie, "Hey, Dad, you want to have a catch?" That stuff will bring a tear to your eye. I'm sure that my wife was watching this with me last night, and she said this feels more like a boys movie, was the way she described it. And I get that. It really is a father-son tale at its core. Anyone who's ever had a relationship with their father, I'm sure will tell you that you kill for those little moments with your dad, especially after they're gone. My father is still alive, thankfully, and we've had plenty of these moments, but I know plenty of people who haven't had those moments and felt like that moment has passed them by. And to get a second shot at that, you're not going to let that go. This movie really is illustrating that to you. I mean, the score to this movie is another great score. Really moves it along so well. Hits the emotional beats that you would want a movie like this to hit. And for Kevin Costner, this is really one of his better performances, because I feel like he's playing this dad so well. This loose dad, very different from the performance he does in JFK. And I really prefer his performance in this over his performance in JFK, just because I prefer when he's kind of more laid back. I think he nails that very well. This had Bull Durham back-to-back years. Some great baseball acting performances. Very different too, actually. So it's not like they're typecast. He plays those roles very differently, but I prefer his role here in Field of Dreams. And then at number 3, we have The Sandlot. I couldn't let myself not pick this one. As a 90s kid, I was born in 1992. This film came out in 1993. I mean, I basically grew up with this movie, and a lot of people my age, we all grew up with this movie. I'm ashamed and embarrassed to admit, though, I thought this movie the first few times I saw this, because I did see this at a very, very, very young age. I thought this movie was filmed in the 1960s before I really understood how movies were made, but because it takes place in the 1960s, I thought that's when it was filmed. Don't worry. I was about 8 years old when I realized, no, that's not how movies are made. They're not just shot like documentaries. So once I figured it out, I understood, and then I realized that this movie was made in 1993. And good thing, too. So anyway, in this film, a kid named Smalls, well, they nickname him Smalls, moves into town, and he just gets in with the local kids who play down at the Sandlot. A bunch of kids who meet up every day in the summer just to play baseball, just at this lot. They don't keep score. They're just there to have fun. Everyone's got cool nicknames. You get Benny the Jet Rodriguez. Everyone there is just getting along, just about that friendship, that summer friendship you had before you had responsibilities, and all you cared about was playing baseball. And you just make up all these ordeals in your head, like the story about the big dog who lives over the fence, and then you realize, the dog isn't that big. Well, he's big, but he's a really nice dog, and his owner's also a really nice guy as well, played by James Earl Jones. This is probably where a lot of people my age learned about the great Bambino Babe Ruth.
But you're
dead? Legends never die, Keith.
I know I didn't know about him, and I was born in New York, and I was like, oh my God, Babe Ruth played for the Yankees. All right. So, eventually I would learn a lot more about Babe Ruth, but this is the first time I saw him and heard about the legend. And now I think for a lot of people, we still hype up that legend of Babe Ruth because of this movie, but there's so many classic scenes in this film. The tobacco throwing up scene is absolutely disgusting. Obviously everyone remembers Wendy Peppercorn. I'm always just glad to see that she was able to take this lifeguard job and spin it around into a nice deputy job for Woodsboro working under Dewey. So that was always really cool. I always think that's funny that she pops up in the Scream movies now. Because, it's nice to see people still acting. So it's cool to see her still acting. But she'll always be known for people my age as Wendy Peppercorn and, that iconic scene in The Sandlot. And The Sandlot still holds up to this day. It's the first time I ever saw Dennis Leary as well. It's still a very entertaining movie that builds up to a great conclusion. Is it the greatest baseball movie ever? No, but it's definitely one for a certain age group to be one of their favorite movies ever. It really feels like summer. That summer when you were a kid growing up, when you had no responsibilities. That was the feeling that you got, and this movie just illustrates that perfectly. It still gives me such nostalgia feelings to this day. Almost makes me emotional just because of the feelings it brings up about childhood. That's what makes this movie so iconic to this very day. And then at number 2, I was really going back and forth, like what's going to be my number 2 and what's going to be my number 1. So I stuck on my classic number 2 when it comes to baseball films. I'm going to put A League of Their Own at number 2, directed by Penny Marshall, starring Tom Hanks, Madonna, Lori Petty, Gina Davis, John Lovitz, Rosie O'Donnell, all people giving great performances. It's about a baseball league, a true story about a baseball league that started up while the men were over at World War II. So the men's league wasn't going on, so they decided to start a women's baseball league. And this movie is not only just funny, but it's also very heartwarming. It tells a great story. You know, we find out really it's about Gina Davis and her sister Lori Petty's character and everything they've gone through growing up. Gina Davis was always the golden child. She was the better baseball player. She didn't have to work as hard as Lori Petty had to work. You know, she was always so jealous of Gina Davis and how everything came natural to her, how everyone still loved her. She always felt left out. And that's the main arc of this movie, is their relationship as they navigate through, both of them playing in the female baseball league. You know, we get Tom Hanks in here as a washed up baseball player.
Thank you for that waitress in South Bend. You know who she is. She kept calling your name.
You know, he was at the top of his game, but he had such an alcohol problem. He injured himself. That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, is how he's explaining how he got hurt to about Penny Marshall's brother, Frank Marshall. And he's like, well, you know, I had to get out of there. I put out the fire. And the guy's like, you started the fire. I love those scenes. This is really right when Tom Hanks was starting his huge run where he basically couldn't miss through the entire 1990s up to Catch Me If You Can in 2002. Everything was a hit that he was putting out, but this is like his last gasp of like doing just straightforward comedy, because he's just absolutely hysterical in here, even though he does combine it with a little bit of drama. But for the most part, his role is fully comedic, and I just absolutely eat that up. I love comedian Tom Hanks. I love it when he goes back to it. You know, it's few and far between, because through the 1980s, that's what he was doing. But in the 1990s, we really got drama Tom Hanks. You know, the next year, I think we would get Sleepless in Seattle and Philadelphia, so that was it. He was full-blown dramatic actor by then, but here, we still get comedic Tom Hanks, and I think that's really what cements this movie as my number 2, because as heartwarming as this movie is and how it builds up to a great conclusion and a very satisfying tale of these two sisters, I still absolutely just adore Tom Hanks in this movie. Which leads me to my number 1, which might seem like a very straightforward comedy, but it is hitting all the baseball tropes, and that one is Major League, also from 1989, and this one stars Charlie Sheen, Wesley Snipes. Tom Berenger is probably the real star of this movie. It's really his arc, I guess, that we're following from beginning to end. And you also get Renee Russo in this movie. Never looked prettier than she does in this movie. The first time I ever saw her, though, was probably, I believe, in Lethal Weapon 2 or 3. That was the first time she popped up in those movies. And she's great in this movie. It's really about, you know, her and Tom Berenger and their relationship, how it fell apart. You know, it's about the Cleveland Indians and how they're basically this failing franchise. They have this shitty owner who, if they don't win the pennant this year, she has the right to move the team to Miami. So, of course, she's going to do everything in her power to make sure that team gets sent to Miami. So what does she do? She makes sure that she builds up the worst team that she could ever imagine, filled with ex-convicts, failures, washed-up players, a manager who's never even been able to do it basically his entire life, but you know what? This is his shot finally. Everybody on the team is either washed up or a failure, so there is no shot that they make the pennant. Well, of course, you know what happens? This is a rags to riches tale, so of course, they start building up. We get some nice 1980s montages in there about them just failing. You know, Willie Mays Hayes, played by Wesley Snipes, is hysterical. I also love the line, you might run like Mays, but you hit like shit. Like, that's a classic line when the one guy pulls out his contract saying he doesn't have to do calisthenics, and the manager just pisses on him. I love all the scenes. This movie is comedic gold. Are you saying that Jesus couldn't hit a curveball? Like, lines like that are just stuck in here are just all hysterical. It's just a laugh out loud riot. Of course, then we have to build up to the great third act where we're hitting all the baseball tropes. You know, this team finally made it to the pennant. Are they gonna win? We got to bring in Wild Thing, played by Charlie Sheen, and you know, you get the score pumping, you get the music pumping, and you know, you feel it in your chest, you feel it. That's what the baseball moments are, and that's really what reflects all baseball films. The best of them is that moment of like, are they going to overcome the odds? Are they going to win? And then, of course, you know, it's a baseball film, so of course they win it. And now that moment is just so spectacular. It's one of the best in film history. It's really just in a straightforward comedy. This is really going for the laughs. But, you know, the dramatic moments do work very well in this movie. But, of course, what keeps me coming back and makes me wanting to rewatch this over and over and over again is the comedic stuff. So for me, Major League will always be number 1. I have a few honorable mentions if you guys want to check these out. Once Upon a Time in Queens is a great documentary that came out, I believe, in 2021. That's following the 1986 Mets. I love that one as well. I also love Moneyball. That's a great baseball movie. Bull Durham. 8 Men Out. There's plenty of great baseball films out there if you guys want to check them out. These are just my top 5 baseball films, but you guys might have different choices that you would swap in and out. So I want to know, what are your top 5 baseball films? Leave those in the comments section below. But now it's also Monday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. So we're going to go spin that magic wheel and see who our 2 lucky winners are. Thanks for being here with me, guys. I really do appreciate it. If you're leaving now and you're not in the giveaway, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel and tell your friends. Everyone else, let's do this giveaway. All right, here it is. We're going to pick our 2 winners of this week's digital code giveaway. So if you guys know how this works, you guys came to Friday's video. You guys answered one of my 2 digital code giveaway questions, which this week was, what is your favorite Ed Harris film? And I was very surprised to see how many people actually agreed with me and picked The Truman Show. I really do think that that's when Ed Harris showed the most range. You know, he's really going through all the emotions. You know, we see the angry Ed Harris that we're all used to, but we also see that he cares about Truman. Like, he really is running the gamut of emotions that you actually care about Ed Harris, when he really could have played this as just a regular over-the-top antagonist, when really he's a villain with layers to him. So I think The Truman Show was definitely the right choice, but we had a lot of other great choices in there as well, and I really did appreciate everybody's answer. And we also asked, what was your favorite Stephen King film adaptation? And I gotta say, I think It Chapter 1 probably won, because most people were picking either that one, The Shining, which would be my choice because I think that is probably the most famous of his adaptations, along with Carrie, and I guess The Shawshank Redemption, but I feel like most people don't even realize that Stephen King did the novella that The Shawshank Redemption is based on, so that one I was actually surprised. That was probably number 3, so I would say the top 3 were It Chapter 1, The Shining, and then The Shawshank Redemption. But we had some other great picks in there. I was very surprised and very happy about how many people picked The Dead Zone, because that's also one of my favorites. That is one of the most underrated David Cronenberg films. So thank you to everybody who entered into this week's digital code giveaway. And without further ado, let's spin this magic wheel and see who won. All right, Bill Howroods 00 is our first winner, and Master of the Fresh. So you guys actually, this is both of your first wins here on the channel, so this is how it works. You guys email me at letstalkentmt@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on any of our social media accounts. That's Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever your app says on your phone. I think it's X now. So Facebook, X, or Instagram. You can reach out to me there, direct message me, and let me know which of the digital codes you would like. As long as the other winner doesn't take it, that digital code is all yours. And if you didn't win this week's digital code giveaway, I think this might have been the most names we've ever had on the wheel. So I want to thank everybody who entered into this week's digital code giveaway. And just so you guys know, we do this every single week. So make sure you guys come to this Friday's video, where we're going to do it all over again. I'm going to ask you guys 2 more digital code giveaway questions, and then you're going to come back to next Monday's video, where we're going to put your name back on the wheel, spin it again, and pick 2 more winners. So don't feel too discouraged if you didn't win this week. Thank you guys all so much for entering the giveaway. I really do appreciate all your support here on the channel. Nothing means more to me than you guys just showing up here and just talking movies with me. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I don't know how to express my gratitude. Thank you guys all so much. And if you guys want to keep supporting the channel, nothing supports this channel more than by just simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and just getting out in those streets and telling your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.